a couple of you. So I wanted to know this in terms of how I'm going to pace my presentation. Okay, so somebody even did a research on this and said technology changes are slowly but surely making us more machine-like. Our relationship with machines began in 1750 with the first industrial revolution, with the advent of the steam engine. And what we saw was mass production for the first time, free availability of goods and commodities, mass urbanization, education coming out of the churches, first time people developing capacities beyond farming. What we also saw was epidemics, children working in mines in subhuman conditions, the level of unemployment that we have never seen before, many people losing their jobs. And the most significant bit was that the first industrial revolution actually brought forth the worst expression of human greed and avarice. Really the worst expression of greed that led to colonialism. The second industrial revolution, if we see, was more of the same. Electricity, locomotives, automobiles, great technological advancements, great progress, but on the flip side, a lot of the same things that happened in the first industrial revolutions. And this time, the hunger for power, control, and that greed took us to the two world wars. The third industrial revolution, the one that we're more familiar with, the one that we've probably grown up with, any guesses, has been about computers and the internet. And if you look back at the last 40 years, this image captures it very well. Do you know what is there on your left? On the right is your Apple Watch. On the left, it's not the first computer, it's actually a Cray 2, which was the supercomputer of 1985. Now, the Apple Watch is twice as fast as that supercomputer. So look at the progress we've made in the last 15 or 20 years. I remember queuing up in Missouri to make an STD call back home. And you could spend as much as 30 minutes standing in that line to make that call, and your mother would tell you, hang up quickly because it's expensive, right? And look at the way we work, look at the way we communicate, look at the way we shop, look at how far we've traveled in the last 20 years. As much as maybe 10 or 15 years ago, even doing a video call would have been a bit of a fantasy, right? We were thinking that someday this might be possible, and now you can't imagine life without it. Yeah? So what has happened in the third industrial revolution is actually, with all the advancements that we've made in nanotechnology, in digital technology, in biotechnology, in physical systems, in 3D printing, in artificial intelligence, in machine intelligence, basically. If you see now, machines are getting more powerful. They can see, they can hear, they can talk, and in another 10 years, they're going to exceed the power of the human brain. So the stage, ladies and gentlemen, is set now for the fourth industrial revolution, for the physical, the digital, and the biological all to come together. So you could ask, are we getting into an era where the Iron Men would become possible? Absolutely. We're getting there pretty soon. So the fourth industrial revolution is underlined by 5 mega trends. There are several ways to slice it, but the World Economic Forum looks at it in these 5 mega trends, and that's what I'm going to discuss today. The first being that tech will be ubiquitous. So up until now, you may think a lot of people have the internet, not even half the world's population is connected. So currently, the figures are something like 42, 43%, and they're likely to go up to 92% in 2025. So the internet penetration is going to more than double in the next 6 or 7 years. Cloud storage is becoming practically free. Governments are going to make this a basic human right, both internet connectivity and cloud storage. And this is going to have a profound impact on how we function as a world. So imagine that more than half the people right now are still living in some kind of a well where they don't understand what is happening around. When all of these people get that access and understand what exists outside, when they don't have that what exists outside, it is going to become less tolerable to them. Yeah? And that will show up in several ways, and we'll talk more about that. The second trend is transhumanization or implants, the possibility of iron men. They're actually putting things inside you. There are several experiments happening as we speak. Techs at Autodesk are putting together a phone, a skin phone. We all know in some of these research studies, they're talking about how these devices may become obsolete in the next 10 years. There's a good possibility there'll be some other kind of phone. Then the significant advancements in technology for medicine. Here what you see is a cyber pill. Then there's Project Proteus. Both of these are devices that can be planted inside your bodies. And what they're going to do is get real-time data on several health parameters and report it on your phones, on your doctor's phones, remind you ahead of time on what medication you need, or even give you that medication internally, and alert you in case of any serious conditions. The Bill Gates Foundation is working on this new contraceptive. Turn it on or off. That's all it's going to take. You won't need surgeries. This is going to be a reality pretty soon. There's cyber tattoos. There's array of computers the size of sand that can target specific cancer cells in the body. So a lot of stuff happening in implants and what you can call transhumanization. The flip side of this really is that right now, only our devices are online. In the future, we will be online. And the whole concept of privacy will become absolutely obsolete. The third mega trend is around vision, the new interface. What you're able to do with your vision, how you're able to expand it to design and to create things, and 3D printing that is altering the future of manufacturing. So I'm going to show you a short video that gives us a glimpse into what is happening in this world.
Technology is all around us. We use it in every aspect of our lives. It enables us to do amazing things. But what if we could go further? What if we could go beyond the screen, where your digital world is blended with your real world? Now we can. This is the world with holograms.
For today's creation, Lorraine is going to create our very own customized quadcopter. Now, Lorraine, what kind of custom design for the quadcopter are you thinking about today?
Well, I'm sort of a space nut, so I thought I would go with a UFO theme. And I think you'll see I've got this cool ray gun shape I'm going to use in a minute.
Ooh, I like it. As Lorraine starts building, you notice that everything is as easy as tap, then gaze, then tap again.
Let's get this right on top. Oh, too low.
This is a 3D print we made earlier of Lorraine's creation in Lorraine's quadcopter. This was made entirely in Hollow Studio. What do you think, Lorraine? Shall we take it for a spin?
Do it.
So much fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Laying out a building in 3D space instead of having to use these 2D floor plans. She's actually touching graphics right now and selecting an interior decor. This was all shot through a GoPro through our very glasses. And this next use case is very personal to me. It's Professor Adam Ghazali's Glass Brain project, courtesy of UCSF. And as a neuroscience student, I would always fantasize about the ability to learn and memorize these complex brain structures with an actual machine where I could touch and play with the various brain structures. Now, what you're seeing is called augmented reality.
We take two things from the patient. First, we take a three-dimensional X-ray, and we extract the three-dimensional data out of that so we can make a perfectly shaped puzzle piece. And then we also take a sample of fat tissue from the patient so that we can extract the stem cells out of those. And we use those stem cells with this three-dimensional scaffold that we fabricate, and after 3 weeks, we have a piece of living bone that's ready for implantation.
What do you think? When is all of this going to happen? Yeah, it's not science fiction videos. It's already happening. The Microsoft HoloLens to create these things, Meta glasses, available between $1,000 to $3,000 for home users. You can actually start printing your stuff. You can actually start designing at a level where, you know, even the most professional designers did not have capacities or softwares. At $1,000, you can start getting there. That's how easy it is going to be. And what this is going to mean, like this is a house that has been 3D printed in 24 hours at $10,000 in Russia. That's how they do it. So 3D printers are not something that are sitting in school labs. They're actually transforming the way we're manufacturing and reducing the gap between the manufacturer and the user. Look at this 3D liver expected in 2024, 3D car expected in 2022. As this gap reduces, many industries will become obsolete. The fourth megatrend is Internet of Things, big data, and artificial intelligence. So we know that very few devices are connected to the internet right now. Right? It's our phones, it's our computers, and maybe some electronic devices at home. In times to come, everything will get connected to the internet. So all your home appliances, even your clothing, your shoes, everything that you have will be connected to the internet. Over 1 trillion objects is what they're saying is going to be connected to the internet by 2025. And what that would mean is that it is going to generate humongous amounts of data. And then they will use this data to design algorithms, predictive algorithms that will solve complex problems using machine intelligence, which is what we call artificial intelligence. And in the year 2004, a fellow called Murrain was writing a book on what people will do. He was a futurist way back in 2004, predicting why you will still need people. And one of the predictions he made was that one thing that computers will never be able to do independently is to drive a car. His hypothesis was that there are so many variables involved, we will never be able to crack that puzzle. Lo and behold, in 2010, Google was testing the first autonomous car. And we know that in another 10 years, humans will probably be banned from driving cars in most countries. Yeah. So that is the power of artificial intelligence. I wouldn't go too much into the details of this, but you got to read this. This is one of McKinsey's reports, which says compared to the Industrial Revolution, AI is contributing to transformation of society 10 times faster, at 300 times the scale, with 3,000 times the impact. So think about it now. The Industrial Revolution happened over a period of 150 years. When we're saying 10 times faster, we're talking about 3,000 times the impact of what happened in 150 years over the next 15 years. That is the level of impact that we're talking about. What was once left to intuition and experience will now be decided by machines. By 2026, they're saying that AI machines will be on the board of directors of most companies. You know about the sharing economy, right? The fifth mega trend. Classic example being Uber, the biggest cab company that doesn't own a cab. Airbnb, the highest room inventory without having a single room. So what has happened in the last 10 or 15 years is that there is this whole trend of access over ownership. Let me give you another example. Now what is beginning to happen is that in France, people have started opening out their homes as restaurants. Right? Now if you travel to Paris and you had the option to eat in a fancy restaurant where you're one of the 100 guests versus having an authentic experience with a French family with French food and wine, what would you prefer? The meal with the family, right? Now, what happens to all those people who set up those restaurants? They're crying foul, just like the taxi fellows are crying foul against Uber. Yeah? So as we're moving into the sharing economy, it necessitates a certain level of trust and transparency, a certain level of collective accountability. Tomorrow, if you were to open up your house, you wouldn't let just anybody in, right? You would want to see what that person's background is, what that person's credit rating is, what that person's trust rating is. And currently, we don't have many of these things in place, but you would probably know that every time you're rating an Uber driver, when you take that ride, the driver is also rating you. So multiple agencies, organizations, people that you're coming in touch with will pretty soon start rating you to develop a system of collective accountability where the sharing economy can thrive. And it is the way forward. It is an irreversible change. There is no question the sharing economy comes with a lot of benefits. To the environment, you're not wasting resources, and purely in terms of the human connections it is going to make, the ability to leverage those resources, it is going to have profound advantages for the global economy and the way we live. Right? I'm just going to share a World Economic Forum video that captures, there are clips taken from 100 videos actually that capture the spirit of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Volume, please.
Distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
I'm going to play it again.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
with the ability to visualize brain activity, for example, through a simple consumer-based EEG device, it gives us access to ourselves in ways that we've never before thought possible. It unlocks the black box that is the brain and enables us to really, truly be able to realize an identity that is aspirational.
Think about the prospect of getting rid of plastics. We must not only be inspired or informed by nature, but actually use natural organisms with which to design products and building parts.
It's not the cure-all for everything. There's definitely a lot of things where people perform the operation better.
It's this ability of digital technology to change outcomes, to truly empower people all over the world that can create a more equitable growth.
I was the first person in the world to be able to voluntarily move my legs while stepping in a robot by exciting the nervous system using electrical stimulators directly onto the spine. We believe that a cure will be possible if enough of the right people have the will to fast-track a cure for paralysis.
So the goal is no longer, I want to be less bad, less monotonous, less unsafe, less unjust. It's really about a diverse, safe, healthy, and just world with clean air, clean water, clean soil, clean energy.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans?
Exciting, right? The level of hope and possibilities that these technologies are going to bring are incredible. And there probably would not be a better time to be alive in. The next 15 to 20 years are going to see the level of creation, invention, and discovery and innovation that we haven't witnessed ever before. But at the same time, it is almost certain that this one time we're going to have more technology and fewer jobs. This fellow, Andrew McAfee, a great professor who wrote The Second Machine Age, talks about how finally machines are getting so powerful that there just won't be enough work for all individuals in this world. So why am I sharing this with you in an education forum? I guess we'll need to figure out what this means for the world, and we'll need to figure out how, as educators, we'll have to respond to this. So some of the imminent risks, 47% of the US jobs are at a high risk of automation. 9 out of 10 most valuable jobs in 2012 did not exist in 2003. 65% of the kids in primary schools will do jobs that do not exist right now. And if you're not excited about your job right now, that's good news. These are some graphs that are not so relevant. So what will get computerized and what won't? What will people still do? This is a graph on skills in education. It's clearly showing that all of the routine tasks, the routine, repetitive kind of jobs that do not require constant adaptation or do not require constant use of original thinking and creativity will get outsourced to machines. The paradox here is that the skills that are easy to teach are also exactly the skills that are easy to automate. What skills will not be computerized easily? And I went through a few research documents on that and read a few books on it. And there are two things that are clearly emerging. One is social intelligence. When we're talking about constantly adapting, moving out of the repetitive, the man's ability to connect with others, our empathy, our perceptiveness, our ability to reconcile differences, to bring people together, to change hearts and minds, to assist, to care, to be trustworthy. Our creative intelligence is the second thing. Social intelligence and creative intelligence, the ability to come up with original ideas, our curiosity, our ability to engage deeply, to ask the right questions, our ability to put disparate bits of information together to create a whole, our ability to think deeply. These are the things that are going to matter. And when we look at what Stephen Hawking is talking about, it only the most caring, the most creative and supervisory roles are going to remain. And when you look at educating for the fourth industrial revolution, it really, these are the words that keep coming up repeatedly. Just take a look at all of these. What does this add up to? Or what comes to mind when you think about the jobs of the future and the skills people will need? How to be human again? Is this not what it means to be human? So there are two things happening here. One, the world is moving into a system of collective accountability where if you're not a decent human being, it may become impossible even to ride a cab. And on the other hand, if you're somebody who in your workplace keeps operating like a machine, let us take the example of a teacher who can't move beyond teaching English from the chapter or teaching math as a subject, who's only mechanically just doing that transaction of getting kids to write exams, that teacher is likely to get replaced by a machine pretty fast. On the other hand, if you're a teacher who's nurturing the child, who's actually looking at the kid holistically and taking care of the child and ensuring the child realizes his or her potential, you're likely to get a huge promotion. So in some ways, being human will no longer be an option. It will become both a social and an economic imperative. And my hypothesis on this somewhat is, when we go back to the start of the session, that are we beginning to feel like machines? Most of you resonated with that. Is this God's way of saying that I sent you on earth to do something else, to relate, to create, to be with others, and you got all these machines around you, and you finally became like machines yourselves, and now I need to probably, through you, create even more machines, and if need be, even plant them inside of you, so all of your mechanical parts get taken care of by the machines, and I also create circumstances to ensure that you get back to being human. I think we're entering into the era of the survival of the humanist. But the unfortunate truth is that we continue to educate children and ourselves to become machines and not more human. Is that a fair statement? Yeah? While we're entering the fourth industrial revolution, we're probably still educating, if not for the first, for the second industrial revolution. For those jobs, for those skills, we're really not making the progress that we should have. Still standardization, still control conformity, still teaching to the test. Result, large-scale unemployability. Look at the skills gap. Different studies put our figures of unemployable people who don't have the skills they need in workplaces anywhere between 50 to 80%. That's several studies across the country. And the problem is actually global, not just in the country. So how do we educate for this revolution? What is it that we can do? In the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to share some of what we've tried to do in the last 12 years. And we've tried to really innovate and deal with this problem even before the fourth industrial revolution was coined. So one is working on social intelligence. We've created something we call the human framework. The underlying work in the human framework is understanding the self, How many of us can confidently say that we know this is what makes us happy, or this is where our sense of meaning comes from, or this is where our sense of joy comes from? Or how many of us know how to manage our emotions, express them productively, to understand them well enough? I think these are things that we don't focus on in our education, and these will be essential to creation, to liberation, to joy of any kind. So the human framework focuses on my swabhav, as Sri Aurobindo had professed, on my relationships, my capacity to relate. Can I build enduring relationships? On my swadharma, my purpose, what gives my life meaning? What was I called to do? What is really the enduring purpose of my life? And my context, my water. What is around me, and how do I contribute to it, and how is what is around me shaping me? So we've developed a whole curriculum on this, and which we call the human framework, and we think all 4 parts are extremely essential to be focused on if people are going to have meaningful lives and succeed in their careers in the 4th Industrial Revolution. The second bit is on creative intelligence, for which we're using project-based learning. We're using a lot of making, tinkering, digital intelligence, technology engineering, and not in the sense of passive consumption. I know many people, including myself, get very upset about obsessive use of technology. But the problem with use of technology is not when you're using it to create something. It is in the passive consumption of technology. So we'll have to make the shift to get children to engage with technology in manners where they're creating something. Again, I'm going to show you a brief video that showcases the possibilities through simple materials of making inside classrooms. Volume, please.
The experience that I went through here was amazing. It's games and science together. The facilitators and the teachers have done an amazing work.
I never expected that kids would come out with this kind of solutions. I think what you're doing is introducing the children to this design thinking concept, which is the key to the future, where think about the problems, combine it with your own learnings, try to combine, do a teamwork, make a product. I think this is absolutely fabulous and brilliant.
Students are now creating authentic products that help promote wellness. So we began with something that's low-tech, such as cardboard, and we said, okay, everyone's here. Your first maker challenge is to create a game that reduces stress. And we give them 20, 25 minutes to make. So they ended up creating various games around that. Then we escalated to the second level, where we said, now that you've made a game about stress, we said, here are some alligator clips, here are some buzzers and LEDs, and the maker challenge was to create a wearable, something you could put on that helps user alert on their body posture or increase their diet habits. So students then came up with various versions of a body posture belt where you put it on, and as soon as you bend, the buzzer goes off. Mind you, these were not the models we asked them to create. We just gave them a...
I think you get the idea. It's getting children to solve real problems that they care about. Here they were working on posture through a project. But the real social and creative intelligence framework comes together through projects that children care about. And we use relationships, relevance, and rigor to bring these projects alive. And I'll take one example of this, which is the bicycle project that our kids did about 5 years ago. 7th graders decided that the city did not have a bike path, and they were upset that they could not cycle as their parents used to. So they wanted to find a solution to that, and we worked with them for about 6 months 1.5 hours every day, and that's how our curriculum is divided. We do about 1.5 to 2 hours of project work every day, which is integrated. There's a real challenge. Children figure out this challenge, project manage the entire thing, work in small groups, divide work, hold each other accountable, do real research, use real data, primary research, this really deep engagement. They work with real experts, they work with the government, they really try and understand what the nature of the problem is, offer solutions, create scenarios, rally people, basically organizing resources, people, money, everything, integrating the content. The teachers integrate all content into these projects. So the science, the humanities, the literacy, math, visual arts. For instance, the humanities, they'll take the history of bicycle, role of bicycles in women empowerment. They'll study, they'll take case studies from villages in India where this is happening right now, how it happened 300 years ago in other places in the world, active citizenship. As a result of this project, they actually got car-free Sundays in Gurgaon, and they named the movement Rahagiri. They manned this project for about 6 months. Now it has moved to about 30 or 40 cities already. A movement started by children from within the classroom that has moved to 30 or 40 cities. But why I'm sharing this with you is not because of the pedagogy. It is more than just these creative or kids got. What they got as a result of the project is that belief in themselves, that belief in the goodness of the world, that belief that they can make a difference, that their life is not about complaining not right outside. They become actors and not spectators in this world. They recognize that they can change things, they can make a real difference. And that is the attitude we want them to leave with. You know, in any revolution, the biggest fear, the biggest danger is that of lack of awareness. So there'll be people who will ride this revolution. Yeah? It happens in every revolution. There are those then who are not aware of any of these changes happening and who will be sitting on the beach and suddenly the tsunami will hit them and they'll get washed away. Yeah. Then there are those who are aware of the tsunami coming but do not have the wherewithal to do anything about it. They'll be sitting there, they'll be watching it coming, and they'll get washed away. So what we'll have to do is to ensure that the ones who are going to ride this revolution take each and every one of the others along with them and not let them get washed away. So they don't ride this revolution to their own benefit. Otherwise, we're going to see more of what happened in the colonialism, in the world wars, in this greed. As people get excited about riding something, they forget everybody else. And now that is not a possible scenario. We're all a group of privilege. There are privileged schools here, there are privileged educators. I know there are 1.3 million schools in India. You probably represent 500,000, a very small population. And if we don't take the responsibility of doing something about this, if we don't take the example of the children and we keep waiting for the government to change or the system to change before we can start changing our own education, then we're really putting everybody at a huge risk. I feel called upon to do something about this. I know the extent of these changes. I feel called upon to share this with you so that there isn't that lack of awareness. And I feel called upon to do something to change things. And if you and I, if each one of us doesn't take responsibility for doing something at this stage, we really might lose out a great opportunity in this era of creation. Education, my friends, is not a race to the top. It really is not about these awards or coming first or being ahead of somebody else. It really is a journey to take every child, to take every single child across to the promised land. That's what we're here for, and I hope I have your support to do that. Thank you so much.
Can we have Mr. Manit back on stage? So I would like to thank you. So please join us on stage. And I also request Ms. Ritu Mare, Editor-in-Chief, Franchise India, to please join us on stage. Thank you, sir, for highlighting some very relevant mega trends in the fourth industrial revolution. And now would like to present a token of respect, a memento. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Mr. Manit Jain. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, our next session will explore the changing DNA of the Indian higher education, the alternative ways in which our existing and future universities can change to ensure their sustainability. Today, universities are finding new ways for developing new relationships with industry on one hand, and on the other hand, get the young talent ready for self-employment and entrepreneurial journeys, and thereby become contributors to economic growth. To take this discussion forward, I'll first call on stage our session leader, Professor Dinesh Singh. He was Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi from 2010 till 2015. Please give a big hand to Professor Dinesh Singh. Sir, a very warm welcome to you, and I urge you to moderate the session. Please give me a minute as I introduce the rest of the speakers. We have with us Mr. Abu Imran, IAS